extremely welcome. We can't wait to hear from you. As you may be aware, because I know that some of you have joined us before in the Industry Forum, we have quite a unique format, and we're looking forward to continuing that format with the event series that we're running now. Even though shorter, it's really important that we have time to interact and meet and network with each other and hear from each other. Actually, everybody who's here has got expertise in the subject that we're going to be discussing to share, so we can share and learn from each other. And that's really the principle of the event. So welcome. We've got 4 speakers with us to set the scene, and I'm really excited to hear each of their unique perspectives on this topic of innovation and digitalization in engineering education. So let me take a minute to introduce all 4 speakers, and then we'll make a start. So first of all, we're joined by Madame Gita Lalu, and really I'm thrilled and thank you, Gita, that you have found the time to join us and share your vision about the future of digital education and the École Centrale Casablanca in Morocco. The École Centrale group needs no introduction in the world of engineering education. It's absolutely there as a leader. And Gita graduated from École Centrale Paris and went into the consulting industry before joining a number of different industry groups, and actually bringing now both as leader of the École Centrale Casablanca in Morocco, and also as General Group Director of the Saham Group, a very unique combination of industry and employer experience and education expertise and leadership as well. So welcome. Professor Saber Darmoul, Professor of Industrial and Systems Engineering, also at École Centrale Casablanca, is joining us. Saber has a long list of distinctions, and you can read these on the event website. I will mention just very briefly. Saber is collaborating with industry and academia in the EMEA region, and his teaching areas are related to systems engineering, with an emphasis on enterprise architecture and business analysis, and his research interests focus on exploring the use of distributed artificial intelligence applied in the field of intelligent manufacturing systems and in intelligent transport systems. I'm really excited to hear Saber's experience of introducing digitalized education with his students, and also the observations that he's been able to make from his many funded research projects with industry on what the needs of industry are. I should mention in particular his capacity building project, which I think will be of interest to many people in this discussion today, and I hope that you'll take the opportunity to ask him questions about that. I'm thrilled also to be joined by Mike Howard, Partnerships Director for Coursera for Campus for the EMEA region. Mike brings his expertise in online learning and assessment to really understand the needs of the institutions that he's working with and bring his creativity and evidence-based decision-making to the digital strategy to create successful partnerships. And I really have been enthused by Mike's passion for making sure that online education can be successful for all and bring better and different outcomes for students, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from him about that. And finally, Geraldine Corrales, the Director of Project Management and Chief Technical Officer of a really exciting technical startup, CityTaps. Again, I hope that you'll take the opportunity to find out more about CityTaps. Geraldine herself of École Centrale Paris, with international experience right from the start of her career, will bring her unique perspective as an employer and a technical officer with engineers in the office and in the field on how digital and innovative education might bring some much needed change and improvements in the field that she's working with. So thank you for joining us. Let's make a start. Gita, if I can come to you first, could you tell us more about the mission of École Centrale Casablanca and about how your digital strategy supports that mission? If you could just unmute your mic.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for your introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really very, very happy to be with you this afternoon. And I want, before everything, Thanks the Coursera team for their invitation to share with you our experience in digital education and transformation. We, as Centrale Casablanca, have a mission of education for a continent. This is the basic thing. The École Centrale is the first broad-based engineering school, not just in Morocco, but also in Africa. And this school is a part of an international network, which is le Groupement des Écoles Centrales, which is implanted today in France from more than 2 centuries, but also in China, in India, and in Africa through Morocco. Our training provides, first of all, a sophisticated scientific input. This is our main mission, but also an essential international experience, which is totally mandatory today with the global world when we live. And our main objective is to train the leading elites of tomorrow's Africa, developing their ability to control and to be comfortable with many things. Complexity, innovation, social responsibility, and cultural diversity. We also try to improve their performance in the management of large-scale projects whose size and complexity answer to the global challenges of our continent. Last thing about Centrale, and it is a very important specificity, we are created 2 centuries ago by Centrale Paris, which was a school created by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So what is really important for us is the proximity to the largest companies, multinationals, and the real proximity of the entrepreneurial economic ecosystem of our region. And with this, we provide for this system through, for example, the hub of Casablanca, the access to the international network of the other Écoles Centrales for better scientific research on a global scale. This is what I want to tell about Centrale, just to explain why digital strategy is so important for us. So, as I said, we have a mission of education for our continent, and we serve this mission by graduating our students. It's the first thing, but also by diffusing knowledge, practicals at a large scale. And in the context of today, and essentially with this terrible COVID-19 crisis, the digital era, in this context, the task is much more reachable than some decades ago. And for that, we have a vision. We have a vision, very clear vision about our digital strategy. And this vision frames 3 main issues. The first, the production of knowledge. Secondly, the diffusion of knowledge in terms of means and tools, which is really represented by the hardware. And finally, and the most important thing, is the mode of diffusion, which is generally represented by the softwares, which is the pedagogy, and more specifically the digital or the e-pedagogy. So this is the main objective of our strategy. As an African school, our value added remains more in producing practical, adaptive, and relevant knowledge for our continent, not addressing generic production of knowledge. And in this stream, The research activities in our school are, of course, essential, but not only. The quality of our students' production during their projects, which is a very, very important part of our pedagogy, and even during some extracurricular activities, are the foundation of the production of a relevant knowledge for wide diffusion. This is important to have in mind. Otherwise, as engineers, we cannot, of course, put aside the infrastructure, or more simply, the tools and the means that allows the transformation of knowledge into contents that we diffuse. So this is the role of the digital labs, the fab labs, the video studios, the computer facilities, the equipment for modelization, and so on and so forth. So finally, and I may say the most important thing that I want to share is the definition, in this journey, the definition of the right pedagogy to transfer the knowledge is really important, much more than the devices or the infrastructure or the gimmick or the gadget of this or this software. And here the challenge concerns two publics. Our students, of course, and here we have an issue for the blended learning, but also our external public for an e-learning perspective, for example, for executive education. And in both cases, the answers rely on a one user-centric approach. If I have just to give one recommendation, is this one, and the second, a systemic strategy. We have really to have a global vision. So the techno-pedagogues are for us much more important than, for example, an IT architect, even if the IT architect is important. And the digital and the era of the profusion of contents that we see today through to the social medias, for example, teach us more than ever that we have to be more empathic and to always keep in mind the why, the purpose that we will lead one of our public or the other to use our knowledge. And that means its content, and its format. Last point. École Centrale de Casablanca graduate non-specialists or generalist engineers, which is also our specification. A generalist means a specialist in what links issues together, in addressing complexity. And this refers somehow to a network approach. Having this in mind, digital offers a great opportunity to non-specialist engineers like our students. So when we talk about big data and AI, we admit somehow the limits of the human rationality to tackle complicated problems. But meantime, we value the human ability, capacities to frame and grasp the complexity in order to encourage the creative skills. And in this perspective, we mobilize the technology of teaching to create this combination for augmented engineers who are able to connect the dots with the help of this new technology. This is the main things about our strategy. And in conclusion, perhaps some words about Coursera. For us, Coursera as an online learning platform for higher education is one of the building blocks of this overall digital strategy. We don't choose Coursera just because it was nice and because we are interested in a part of the journey. It's really, in particular, into the diffusion of the diffusion mode block. Coursera gives us a very important part of this database. And this platform already solves us many important things, like, for example, the reset problematic. When students fail an exam, they could choose a deepening for a reset exam, for example. It's very useful for projects, essentially the learning by doing projects, because the database is so rich, so amazing, that they could find all what they want. And from some months ago, because we just had this partnership for some months, I can give you just two figures. Our students have, in average, 3 courses through Coursera, and until today, we have 10% of the courses which was finished, completely finished, and certified, sorry. So it's really for us the proof of our vision, and we are more and more convinced by this skill that I developed before. And I hope that this testimony will encourage and give some answers to all the friends who are here this afternoon, and perhaps give them some solution for their questions. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Geeta. Thank you for joining. I know that you will not be able to stay for the whole of the discussion, but you have given us already some really great food for thought in terms of the strategy and also the tools that you're using. And that's actually already generated a comment that I'm going to kick off with for Saber. So thank you, Geeta. Now, and in fact, just jumping straight on the question that we've had, if I can turn to Professor Saber, as Geeta said, engineering is often a question of learning by doing. Of course, there are great theoretical aspects, but students like to get their hands on. And so my first question really would be about how have you used digital innovations or technology to deliver this kind of practical engineering education?
Okay. Thanks, Kirsten, for the question, and thanks for the opportunity. Actually, it is the challenge we are facing in the pandemic era. In fact, when most of the countries were hit by the pandemic, there were social distancing regulations in all countries, and this challenged the traditional modes of delivering courses. So we switched and among the challenges is, for example, in engineering, students need to practice. They need to be in touch with machines, with resources. For soft skills, they need to communicate. They need eye contact with their professors and with their mates. So one of the challenges is how to preserve this ecosystem and continue business and not being interrupted. So what we did is we scaled our ways to deliver knowledge. So we opted for video conferencing, and we chose those tools that were best suitable. So we needed to upgrade as professors also. So we had trainings, for example, on Microsoft Teams, not to make it to name the brand, but we are using Teams, and we needed the training on that. And then we discovered that we need also we need videos. So we saw that our students are navigating on YouTube, and from here came the idea to provide our students with reliable infrastructure. With reliable infrastructure that can help them find directly the sources. And we found that Coursera is innovating actually in terms of engineering education. So in addition to classical videos and learning content, they are providing what they call guided projects, which is very, very interesting for us because it is a way that relieves students from infrastructure issues and helps them focus on the content to practice, especially when it comes to software engineering and computer engineering. So slowly we are moving we are emphasizing and highlighting simulation tools, okay, to prepare well in advance the physical manipulations that require physical presence.
Okay, and how have you found the reaction of the students there? Have they been enthusiastic about this as an educator? What kind of challenges have you had to overcome?
Okay, right now we are in a transient period. So in the beginning, they were frightened. They were frightened because the requirements of the school are very high. So they were frightened to lose contact with their professors, not to be able to have the same pace, the same rhythm with what they used to have as classical courses. So in the beginning they were frightened. Then they got used to it. And if you remember, in the beginning of the pandemic, many platforms opened their courses. They opened their courses for free to let people discover what they do and to let people have access to. And then they embraced the pace, and they discovered that it's really, the platforms can offer really real benefits for them to accelerate and to boost their knowledge and their know-how. After the crisis, after now we have some experience, unfortunately, with the virus. We think direct contact and direct eye contact with the students is still necessary and still required, because there are when you see people, you can guess through their face symbols and face expression, if they got the idea or if they missed the idea. And so we are now trying to find our equilibrium between real physical presence and digital presence, and we are trying to marry them both, in fact. So
the opportunities are there. What you've said mirrors something that I've heard several times from leading educators, that the value of seeing the understanding in the student's face, and so finding a balance between the two. Maybe just before we move on to hear from Geraldine, I'd like to ask about, where do you get your inspiration from in terms of what kind of skills you've got a general engineering program. What kind of skills do you think the students need to learn? And where do you take your inspiration from to make sure that you're really training students for the future of engineering in Africa, in your continent?
Yeah, this is a very nice question, because in the school here, and I guess in all engineering schools have the specificity to be open up to the entrepreneurial world, to the enterprise. We are an engineering school which is disconnected from its economic ecosystem it misses really something, misses real opportunities. So trying to be to hear from industry, trying to go for industry, try to when you look for your training internships for your students, you get in touch and in contact with managers, and you have general discussions where you discover their concerns in terms of employment, in terms of skills. So you discover, and then you go back to office and try to think how could we fill in this gap, and through trainings students ask you questions. So you discover the topics of interest of their employers behind. This is one. Two, here in the school, and now the phenomenon is worldwide. You have a huge amount of knowledge to deliver in short period of time. So this is a real challenge in engineering education. How do you select, and how do you sort the knowledge, and how do you adapt your course to the format imposed? Okay, It is here where there is the transfer from research to engineering education is worth. It is this transfer, when the researcher and the professor thinks of it, it helps create new content, and it helps create ways to marry this digitalization with the physical presence required.
Thank you. You've given me a perfect bridge, I think, to move on to ask a couple of questions to Geraldine. Thank you, Sabir. And so if we go to Geraldine to hear from industry, indeed, I wonder whether you could kick off just telling us just very briefly about CityTeps, but in particular, given you've got engineers in the field, in the office as well, or perhaps working from home today, what kind of skills would a graduate engineer need coming to CityTeps? Geraldine.
So obviously in our technical team, you're looking for technical skills, but what really matters, especially for a student coming out of university looking for their first job, or for a student looking for an internship, it is all the soft skills. So someone who is really able to take initiative, to be a go-getter, take ownership. And this idea of building their own curriculum and being an actor of their own learning is really interesting for us, because it means that when they come to us in an interview, they can say, well, I was interested in this field, and because I wanted to learn more, these are the courses I took, and I went deeper and beyond what the university was just giving me. I was not a consumer, I was an actor of my own education. And this to me is very interesting, because we know that when students come out of university, they don't necessarily have a very in-depth experience, but this shows that when they come and join us, whatever they're lacking, they will know where to get it. So that's something that's really intriguing when they come out of such a curriculum. The other thing is, obviously, today the world has changed. We're working remote. If they're comfortable studying in front of a computer in a remote setting with remote learning, then they will be comfortable in an office, at home, in an office, in a company setting. And also, again, they're setting themselves to be lifelong learners, which I think is very important. Myself, I've started taking my first online course only a couple of years ago. Now I'm on my third completely new field, learning that way. The first time it was very painful, and now I'm enjoying it, and I know I'm going to be doing it more and more. And that's what I'm looking for in an employee, someone who will not be stuck, someone who will want to grow and will be able to grow within the company because he's learning outside, he or she is learning outside.
Thank you. That's a really important point, and that's come up over and over again when we've talked in the industry forum about the profile of the engineer of the future, that the engineer of the future is going to be a continuous learner and must learn how to learn. And you've given us a great example there. I mean, thinking about your own background, I know that you are studying a master's degree in nut engineering. How might this have translated to the kind of education that you had? Is what we're talking about, this kind of building your own online program, something that you would have found appealing?
I would have loved it. I have a very specific background. I studied in a business school, and then I did a master in Central for students that were not technical but wanted to work in technical field, or in technical companies rather. So the curriculum was as broad as possible, as wide as possible, but didn't go in depth in any of the field. I studied a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of biology, a little bit of electronics. And I knew that I wouldn't get into a biology company. So that time would have been better used learning something else, going deeper in the fields I was interested in. So for sure, that would have been a great method of learning for me that would have helped me achieve my objectives. Because by then I knew what I wanted to do, and I had some personal objectives.
Okay. That's great. I think we'll come back to you about the environment that your engineers might be working in now, as people start to go back to work and back to school. But I just want to take the opportunity to come to Mike with a couple of questions. And by the way, just thank you everybody in the audience for the questions that you're posting. I see them there. It's really helpful if you can post your questions in the question and answer box, which you should see at the bottom of your screen, and keep chatting as well. There are some great comments in the comments box, so thank you for that. We will come to those. Mike, just coming to you as a kind of one of the principal actors behind the scenes, really, in this transformation that we're talking about. Can you tell me a little bit about your role, and how does Coursera partner with universities to respond to this challenge of taking more and better education online, in particular with respect to engineering, and both in terms of the theory but also the practical aspect?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Kirsten. So yeah, Coursera began in about 2012, and we initially worked with individuals who took our courses and then would pay for the certificate. And then in about 2016, we started working in the first section, Coursera for Business. So we work with thousands of businesses and industries around the world, because there was a lot of demand from them in terms of upskilling and reskilling their employees. Then we also set up Coursera for Government in 2017, working with governments around the world. And then in 2019, we started what I work for, which is Coursera for Campus, working with higher educational institutions. It was going very well, and then suddenly this pandemic hit us all, which, I think it actually, in terms of digitalization as a whole, that was happening anyway. And what the pandemic has done is just accelerate everything to an incredible degree. So, we currently have 80 million learners on our platform from all those different areas that I talked about, which gives us a really huge insight into actually the skills that are required around the world. And that's really important that we can use that data. Our content, we have, as we've talked about, we have a huge range of content. We work with 200 of the best universities and industry partners to create our content, and that includes courses, which are about 3 to 4 weeks long. Just if you study 2, 3, 4 hours a week, about 4,500 courses. And then we've talked about these guided projects, which are part of Coursera Labs, which engineering schools are particularly interested in. We have about 1,500 of these. We can talk a little bit about them later as well. Then we do specializations and professional certificates. And I think the way people are engaging with Coursera is that what we do when you have a license, that gives access to absolutely everything that we have. And then the institutions can design their own programs according to what their specific needs are. So it's very adaptable in that sense. I think École Centrale Casablanca have talked about, we have a whole range of human skills, and Geraldine also talked about the importance of human skills, or life skills, if we can call them. We have a whole range of those, very, very important. They're becoming actually essential skills, I think, and this is what we're being told by our industry partners as well. But the École Centrale Casablanca were very interested in the Coursera Labs aspect. So Coursera Labs is divided into lab assignments, which are assessed parts of the courses. They're more technical, generally around sort of programming. And then we have these guided projects, which are standalone, practical, hands-on projects. They're 2 or 3 hours, and they're sort of how to put into practice what you've learned in theory. So they're becoming incredibly popular. They're around things like Python programming, Jupyter Notebooks, RStudio, as well as lots of other domains, Excel and project management and Salesforce, etc. And then I think the final aspect, which is really interesting for engineering schools, is that we also offer the ability to author your own courses and guided projects on our platform for your students. So when there's things that are very specific to you which aren't on the platform, you can create your own. And I think that's something that Saber will correct me if I'm wrong, but that's something that they're planning on doing as well for their own specific needs that we don't actually have on the platform.
Okay, so there's a combined approach there that can be made between Coursera and the school. And I'm wondering, because I know that we have the leaders of a large number of engineering education institutions with us on the call, and I'm just wondering what kind of, if universities are listening to you and thinking could be interested in trying that, what kind of barriers are there for an institution to overcome? How quick and easy is it to get started on the kind of program that you're talking about?
Well, we work closely in partnership with we develop. It's not just a case of saying, here's some courses, do you want to buy them? We develop partnerships where we work with our skills transformation team, who will work with the program directors to assess exactly what the needs are of that institution, so that we can help design the programs that are fit for their needs. And so that could be, obviously, a program around human skills, or it could be, it could be, there's a lot of institutions are working with us, especially for emerging skills, which change so rapidly. And because we can develop courses quite rapidly, that saves institutions time from having to develop their own curricula and rapidly adapt it as it changes. And I think the multidisciplinary approach that we have as well is very useful. So engineering schools obviously do lots of engineering courses, but some of their students might need business courses. They might want to go and set up their own engineering business when they leave. So they can, through our licensed method, they can actually use Coursera to look at how to set up a business, do accounting, financial management, business strategy, and those types of things as well. So it's a real partnership that we work with to try and make it as fluid and as easy as possible.
That's great to hear. I mean, I'm just thinking and applying what you're saying to my own experience in the field as well. I'm a member of the Institute of Student Employers in the UK, whose latest research had the top 3 skills required by employers as being the third, good collaborative online working skills, which is kind of understandable in the environment we're in right now. And the first, empathy and resilience, which don't often figure in engineering programs, but actually can be learned by doing a whole range of different kinds of activities, and the interdisciplinary activities absolutely can.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big picture is that the world is moving more towards skills and industry. So we're working with 80 million people and lots of industries, and they're telling us the skills that they require. And there was a survey done by Wiley Education a couple of years ago now, so pre-pandemic, which showed that 62% of employers are moving more towards skills first for employing people, and deprioritizing maybe the degrees and the master's programs. And in fact, 90% said they would hire people based on certifications demonstrating particular skills. So for me, the ideal sort of world is to have the degree and the master's programs matched with the certifications demonstrating particular skills that the employers require as well. I think that's the sort of perfect picture.
Combination. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to take a couple of questions from the audience, and then we're going to go into group discussions, because I know that many of you have got your own experience to share in this field. And Christian, I'm not going to ask your question, but I think it sounds like a very exciting idea. So I'm going to ask the panelists to comment on that while the group discussions are taking part. But there's a couple of questions really about the idea of accreditation. And so maybe if Saber or Mike could comment on that. How are you, what's your experience of the recognition process? How are these programs being recognized? Saber, do you want to come in on that?
Yes. With respect to accreditation, one of the big there are mainly, I try to think the question, because it is a question that comes back very often. There are, I think, two main categories of challenges with respect to accreditation and recognition. The first one is related to distant and remote learning, to the specificities of this kind of learning. When you have no eye contact, when you have little interaction with students, it can influence the learning process. Also, when you are teaching math or physics, you know that you have to write equations and matrices and do calculations, and you need to explain things on the board. And this is a challenge for digital platforms to overcome. Okay. Also, there is the difficulties with doing experiments for physics, for example, and engineering disciplines, you need to do experience. So these are the challenges with respect to distant remote learning. And certifications, accreditations, they ask tough questions about this. How do you manage experimental aspects in your curricula? The second category of challenges is, and really this is really the main question for us here in the school. It's with respect to evaluation and assessment of students. How can you check the honesty, between lots of brackets, the honesty, the goodwill, the good intentions of the student making quizzes on remotely? How can you check that the student was alone and the student was able to deliver? And this is the answer of the student you are assessing, not of his colleague or mate or brother or friend. You know, this is a real assessment issue, and I think if these kinds of challenges are solved, then I chose my word. It is a marriage that will happen, and there will be deep transformations of the pedagogical and learning process in traditional institutions.
It's very interesting, actually. It's inspired me as well, a question that I'd like to bring to Geraldine on this, because actually I know that often we look at accreditation as being something for the engineering school to look at, but actually once engineers are out in the market, it's a question of also how does their employer see their qualification. And I know Google recently had announced that they want particularly going to consider an accredited degree, but could consider different kinds of courses. I mean, Geraldine, what kind of, are you looking for a specific degree on the CVs of the applicants that you get? How would you compare somebody who studied something that was in part from Coursera, for example, or have these micro credentials that are stacking up, that are becoming so much more the way that things are going these days?
That's a tricky one, because I work for a startup, so we tend to have a different view compared to bigger companies. As far as CTTAPs, it does matter. As a matter of fact, I was hired as the director of product for an IoT startup because I did an online course on IoT product management, and I completed that by an agile product manager, product owner course. So that's what helped me build my story as to why I am applying to CTTAPs and how these new skills that I just acquired are complementing my previous experience that had nothing to do with IoT. I was in a company that made vacuum cleaners. So my own experience is it does matter a lot. As far as the people we're hiring besides me, same thing. We value a lot more their experience, their projects, what they are coming to us, the story they're telling us in their curriculum, in their LinkedIn profile, which comes down to accreditations and stuff for specific skills, and what they're telling us when they're coming in an interview and they're explaining us why they chose those specific skills and how they are building their career and their passion towards what we're doing. So, but again, that's the perspective of a startup. Yeah, I suspect in a big group, it's somewhat different.
It could be different. This could be the theme of a whole new webinar series. I think, you know, how are we going to evaluate, accredit, and how are employers going to understand these new kinds of diploma, degree, and course that are being issued. I think we're going to take the opportunity, because there are some brilliant questions, and there are also some great comments in the chat, and you're actually answering the questions too. So thank you for that. We're going to take this opportunity to go into our discussions, and I'm going to ask Geraldine and Seber and Mike to look at the questions as well while the discussions are happening, so that we generate some more responses for you. I wonder if we can, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes really to briefly describe what we're going to do. And those of you who've participated in the industry forum with us before will not be completely surprised to know that you're going to move into some group work now. So just very quickly, I thank you to the panelists, but not my formal thank you, because you're going to come back at the end of the session and comment on what we hear. So what we're going to do now is just take a few minutes. We've got what we're calling a transition break. Do not go far. We would like this to happen fairly quickly to make sure that you have as much time as possible in your discussion groups. So when you were sent your joining instructions, there were a number of links there, and there was a link there and name Group A or Group B. So what I would like you to do, and you can do it as soon as you like, even if it means you jump off the call before I've finished, click on the link in the joining instructions or in the link that you'll see posted in the chat for Group A and for Group B. And I think Dominic's about to post those links in the chat literally as I'm speaking. Join that Zoom group. Once you're in that Zoom group, you will be put into a small discussion group, about 7 or 8 people, and you'll be posted some instructions as to what to talk about during the discussion. Nobody needs to take notes specifically, because we'll use a tool called Padlet when you come back to share those discussions, and you will have at least 15 minutes to talk from the moment that you enter your breakout group, so that you've got time to go in depth on the question that you're being asked. Radu and Stefan are on hand to make sure that you find your group, and also to bring you back here, to guide you back here once the time is up. Now, and if I can just see the next slide, it simply replicates the instructions that you will see when you join your discussion group. You'll be asked to nominate a chairperson, and there's a suggestion on how you could do that in order to decide quickly. As I said, the chair does not need to report back because everybody can contribute to the Padlet, but please do make sure everyone has the opportunity to contribute in order to keep track of time and cover the views from everyone in the group. You'll see a couple of questions to the right-hand side. These are the questions that we would like you to discuss in your group. And as I said, they'll be posted in the chat as well. So you can screenshot this, but you'll also have it when you get into your group. Once you're ready, but don't jump straight to the Padlet. Spend some time discussing first. That's the point, right? We're all here because we want to meet and interact and learn from each other. And then we'll post a link to the Padlet. You can post your comments there. And as I said, Radu and Stefan will bring you back a little bit later than 14:05, in fact, because GMT, because we'll give you at least 15 minutes in the group. So they will keep you posted on that. So right, if everybody please go ahead, click on your links, Group A or Group B, and within a couple of minutes, you'll be in a group chat together. And I'm looking forward very much to hearing what you've talked about when you come back. So after a series of lively discussions, I know, and a great amount of comments, this is absolutely brilliant on the Padlet. And just, I know that many of you will be familiar with this tool. We will be saving this and saving the Q&A and sharing it with the recording of the session on the GEDC Industry Forum website once we have wrapped up. But let me turn now, just in the final 10 minutes of this session, let me turn back to Mike, to Saber, and to Geraldine. And can I ask each of you, just looking at the questions that we've asked and the comments that you see there, and there are many, is there something that jumps out to you in particular that you think either inspires you or, you know, gives you food to thought, and something that we need to keep on working on? Who would like to go first?
I can comment if you like. There was a few questions about recognition of certificates and security, online security, and academic integrity, cheating and plagiarism and that type of thing. And yeah, of course, it's definitely an issue, and it's one that we're constantly working towards facing in Coursera. And also, firstly, we're working with, so what we already have is URL. We've disabled URL sharing. We disabled copying from the peer-to-peer reviews. We have variants of the quizzes built in from item banks, and we work with plagiarism detection software called Turnitin, which if you've copied something from the internet, it will recognize that. And what we're also working on as we're moving along through this year is having a plagiarism dashboard. We would have online proctoring, which will be from a third party. So when you get to this, some universities will use Coursera for credit. So in that case, they might want to have extra security. So we're working with a proctoring organization that can proctor those exams. Others want to use us for the content, but decide to do their own assessments, which is fine as well, in which case that issue sort of goes away. One interesting aspect, a university in the Côte d'Ivoire called CERCO, they get all the students to actually come in to their computer labs and do the assessments in the classroom so that they can actually watch and see what they're doing, so to ensure that there's not somebody looking over their shoulder to give them their answers. So yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue not just online though, it's an issue in all sorts of, it's throughout, since the history of assessment, there has been a history of cheating. So yeah, it's something that we're constantly battling against, and we're really concentrated on finding solutions to that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mike. That's very practical and useful to hear. Saber, can I come to you now? What would you like to share, having read the comments that you
Actually, there is a question that is very interesting and that is very specific to Africa, which is how could we do with limited resources? We have small universities with a small infrastructure or with limited access to infrastructure, and how can we do to embrace these new technologies and to solve our problems? Well, I have one of the answers is that I have a European funded capacity building project. This type of projects focuses on bringing together developed countries and emerging countries and making transfer of knowledge. And one of the ideas is the following. We are two North African countries with 4 institutions participating in this project. And one of the ideas to share resources and to have access to distributed resources, because I have a workbench here, my colleague have another workbench, the other country have, the idea is to design and develop and to rely on cloud technologies to design digital twin technologies that would enable access to distributed infrastructure in many universities or in many countries. So you have a kind of digital factory where you can access data, where you can access equipment remotely. And if we can develop Pan-African projects and work together on such kind of things, it would be very beneficial to all partners. So one way to go ahead of limitations is to rely on digitalization, for example, on cloud technologies, digital twin technologies, simulation technologies, virtual reality and extended reality technologies, waiting for internet to be developed so that we can fill in this gap to access internet. This is one of the most important questions to develop the continent.
Thank you, Saber, and I'm sure that there will be many in the audience interested in hearing more about that. So if you'll allow me to connect you, if people would like to find out more about your project, I will certainly do that. I use the opportunity to encourage people to stay connected, for example, by connecting on LinkedIn, because there's a GDC Industry Forum discussion group on LinkedIn where more discussion on these topics could be shared. So Geraldine, literally in a minute, and I'm sorry to squeeze you into the closing minutes of our session, but I'd love to hear from you. What have you been inspired about or intrigued about by the comments that you see here?
The first one, how can institutions and employers leverage online and digital education to develop more resilient and more agile engineering education programs? I think it's important to get companies and active people, I mean people in the workforce, to participate in the design of those curriculum in a way or another. So maybe having testimonies of people in different position and what skills they feel that they need, and then link that into the course offering and some kind of own evaluation matrix that the students can have or can do either themselves or with their teacher, and having a way to link all of that. So this is where I am, this is the course offering, this is where I want to go, this is what I'm missing. So then I go and get the course. Facilitating that is something that I don't know. I haven't gone into the Coursera platform myself, so I don't know if it exists. But I think that would be a great tool to start for the students.
So a career builder matrix where you take the combined knowledge of educators knowing specific disciplines and industries looking for graduates with specific needs, and helping graduates to plot out, what do I need to do next in terms of my education to get from where I am now to where I want to go next, which actually is what you did, Geraldine. So you should be part of the advisory board for whichever organization takes up that idea. Thank you very much. That's a great suggestion. Well, look, we have reached the end of our time. So just literally, if you'll allow me 30 seconds. First of all, huge thank you to all of our panelists, and to Gita, of course, Saber, I know that you will share our wishes. It was just great to have you all with us. So thank you for this valuable discussion. And thank you also to everybody in the audience who joined and participated and shared the comments and observations. I know many of you are very busy implementing digital education and looking after your students, and it was just great to have you with us. If you enjoyed this dialogue, please participate again. We will be sharing a feedback form. We'd love to hear from you about what are the hot topics for you. What would you like to connect with your peers and discuss on in this kind of format? We'll be asking you that, and I'd really like to hear your comments. And what do you enjoy about this format? Is there anything you didn't enjoy as well? We're always looking to improve. You'll find the output, the recording, the Padlet, the Q&A. We will share this on the GDC Industry Forum website. You're very welcome to join us there, and as I said, in the LinkedIn group. And we'll be planning for the next executive forum to take place in June. We also have some exciting news about the industry forum itself, which will be announced, I think, at the beginning of next week. Registrations will be open very soon. And we hope very much that you'll be able to join us in person or online, as it will be a hybrid event hosted by the Technical University of Dresden. We're really excited about that. And at the same time, innovating ourselves, we're exploring some really new and nice interactive networking tools for the moments where we can't get together in person, that would allow us all now to go and grab a coffee, a beer, a cup of tea, whatever time of the day it is with you, and get together online just for some more informal chat. So by the next time we have this event, we'll be able to implement that, and I hope enjoy some informal conversations as well. So once again, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and let's keep going with this really important work to make sure that learners can make the most of the opportunities that they have and be educated and get out and successful in the world. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.